Okay, this week here is focused on inequalities just for a moment so we can learn the rules of the symbols. These notes here work under the assumption that you have learned the basics of solving. If you are having issues with the skill set of solving, then you should understand that solving is more than likely holding you back in this chapter of information. A lot of times whenever students face this, they feel like inequalities is tough, but it's not the inequalities. The symbol is really the only thing you have to deal with. But again, if your solving strategy is not up to speed, then that's really what's going to cause you most of your issues. Looking at the test that I gave to my 135 class just this weekend, a majority of students didn't miss because they didn't find of the sign. They missed because they didn't know how to find the number. So each of your lessons is going to end with a couple of problems to work out alone and bring up to me. This represents your daily participation grade. Please watch and listen to each presentation completely. Because this is the second quarter, your expectations are increasing just slightly. You're going to need a sheet of paper for this presentation, as our only job today is to learn what makes equations different from inequalities in terms of solving. So again, that is the only thing that we're going to do is figure out what makes the two different. Equations, as we talk strategy here, because really that's everything that there is. Equations allow us to solve with no issues. Imagine being part of a class where every student, 100% of the students in there actually wants to succeed. In this class, students don't interrupt teaching because they take pride in their work and in the fact that their performance reflects who they are as a person. Imagine that every student in the class has enough pride to follow instructions even though they don't like the subject or even the amount of work necessary to succeed. But in the end, every student in this class understands that working hard is the main key to success. So imagine that you have a class like that and ask yourself how many issues would occur in this class on a daily basis. The correct answer to this question is none. And in other words, the teacher in this class could just come to work focused only on teaching, not on babysitting, dealing with other issues that are non-math related. I know this classroom exists because there are schools where all the kids come to class like that and the teachers love it and they call them great teachers, but again, it's just because the students really work hard. So this situation that I'm talking about represents equations. When you solved equations, you could focus only on the solving, just like the teacher could focus only on the teaching. You didn't have to think of anything else but getting the variable alone and using the rules of algebra that you had been taught. But inequalities is a slightly different beast. They still expect for you to solve because again, you have to have that strategy, but there are other concerns for you to keep in mind. So imagine a different class of students where they have the intelligence to learn the material, but many of them have no desire to succeed or even any desire to graduate high school. These students come to class typically with no materials, plenty of attitude, and they bring any piece of baggage from outside the classroom into class while waiting for the teacher to just say one thing to set them off. I'm sure you've seen this type of class. Many of these students do not understand the importance of sitting still and focusing on absorbing the information, and they think the teacher is supposed to just bend to the students' every need while still making the students smart enough to pass. Even more, the students do not have the discipline to just try the material because they don't trust that practice is actually what makes you better, so they continually talk, disrupt, and sleep through the lesson. Again, I don't know if you've seen that type of class, but I have seen those types of class. And the question here, not so much for the issue of the class, but for the issue of inequalities, how many issues would occur in this class, and how much could the teacher focus just on teaching? The correct answer to that question is a lot of issues would happen. The teacher's job is still to teach the information, but they have to be prepared for so many issues that have nothing to do with math or school. Planning and preparation become key. So in other words, this teacher can still be a good teacher, but they have to prepare for the fact that certain students are going to do certain things. They have to have certain ideas in mind just in case people jump out of where they're supposed to be. The teacher is still the teacher, but again, they have to be aware of what could or would happen, and this represents your inequalities. Whereas in equations, you could just walk in, solve, and everything's great. This represents what we are going to get into today. Please write down everything that I write down for you from the examples. This represents the 1 day of notes on the basics of inequalities. It also represents your daily participation. So if you choose to skip any part of it, the result is a 0. This is your daily participation again, so if I look at it and you've skipped a step or you skipped anything at all, you're going to lose points on that. So please have your pencil and paper ready now. What I was discussing in terms of the inequalities is just like equations you teach or equations you solve with no issues, with inequalities you still solve, but again, you have to be aware of what happens to make things a little different. Okay, so here's our examples. You got about 5 of them. 3x plus 2 is greater than 11. Our solving does not change. What I'm going to do is, and you need to write this too, we're going to move the 2. And we know how to move the 2 because this is a plus 2. Our solving in last chapter taught us to subtract 2 from both sides, taught us that this cancels out. 3x comes down with 9. Then we're going to move the 3. Again, that's nothing major. The way we move this 3 is by dividing by 3, dividing by 3, x comes down with 3. Now I want you to notice that the symbol did nothing. The symbol stayed the same the whole time. We got to our answer. That is your answer. Alright, so again, moving numbers cause no issues at all. That was not a problem. Look at example B. Again, you might want to pause that and write that as you go if you need to do that. Example B. We've seen this problem before. This is the one where I've told students to pick the smaller one and move it. So we're going to move our 4x over here. Again, make sure you write the steps because this has a point to it. Moving 4x is going to be subtract 4x. 8x minus 4x is 4x plus 3. Less than or equal to, that goes away. 27. Now we are going to move the 3. By subtracting 3. Again, notice how moving has no problems with what's going on. That is 24. Then we're going to move the 4 by dividing by 4. And you get x is less than or equal to 6. Once again, notice no problems, no issues, nothing's happening. Again, this is the first class I was talking about where we could just solve and nothing's really going on because there aren't any issues. But there are problems and inequalities that you have to look out for, and this is one of them. And again, don't think about the issue until it arises. Just like I wouldn't write a referral before a kid even walks into class waiting for them to do something and kick them out. You have to wait for the issue to arise. So in this, we still will move the 7. And we move the 7 the same way we've been taught. Plus 7 plus 7. 25 plus 7 makes 32. Symbol comes down. 2x comes down. Again, still not a problem. We're going to move the 2. So we divide by 2, divide by 2. We get 16 is greater than x. Here is our issue. Every time you do inequalities, and put a star by this one, every time you do inequalities, the variable needs to be on the left side. And again, in grading some of the tests that I gave to my class Friday, a lot of you got the right answer, but you left the variable over here. Again, the variable needs to be on the left side. Make sure you have that note in your brain now. So the variable needs to be over here, and what we're going to do is flip the sides, which means that x moves over here, 16 moves over here. The thing about flipping sides means you also must flip the sign. So whenever that x comes over, notice that this symbol is pointing at x. It should still be pointing at x. That is the answer there. And again, that star is because that is the issue that we are looking for. If that issue is that the variable's on the wrong side and we have to flip, that is the one time when the sign changes. Again, the sign stayed the same as we moved the 7. It stayed the same as we moved the 2. But once we turned it over, the sign flipped. And again, that's where you need to be careful. That's where you need to make sure you are paying attention to what's going on and taking your time there. Look at letter D. In letter D, I am going to, because it has to be on the left, and you could do this in 2 ways, but because my variable has to be on the left, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to move the 8x, because 8x is eventually going to have to be over here anyway. 5x minus 8x is negative 3x plus 4 greater than or equal to, that goes away, negative 5. Still, we are going to move the 4. Nothing major. Again, we learned this before. We learned this in chapter 2. That goes away, giving us negative 3x greater than or equal to negative 9. Now this again is where, for my students who took the test on Friday, if you look at your notes, this is where a lot of you fell short. You have a negative number attached to a variable. A lot of you divided by a negative 3, and guess what you forgot to do? Is to switch that symbol, which is why what I do is I flip the signs, which means I make this 3x positive. I flip this sign to be the opposite way, and I make my 9 positive. Alright, so anytime you flip the signs, or flip the sides, that symbol's going to have to change. Now what we do is we divide by 3, x comes down with 3. Again, your answer still would have been 3 if you divided by that, but what a lot of you did on your test from Friday, what I did was I gave you a chance to kind of get the first test out of the way, is you forgot to change that symbol around. But again, we flip sides, symbol changes. When we flip signs, the symbol changes. Those are the only two times you have to worry about. So again, if you have to flip the signs, change the symbol. If you have to flip the sides, we change the symbol. But outside of that, there is nothing else to worry about in terms of inequalities. Those are the only two issues that arise, which is why, again, a lot of people miss the questions. 6x plus 4 equals 8x plus 10. This time I am going to follow my own advice, and I'm going to move. Again, make sure you write all these words off to the sides, because if I don't see those words, you're not getting credit today. We're going to move the smaller one, which is the 6x. So again, just to show you that you could go either way. You could move the number to the left, or you could move the smaller one to the right. 4 comes down with 2x plus 10. Again, notice the sign is not a problem. Then we're going to move the 10 the way we've been taught to move the 10, which is to subtract 10. We get negative 6. The sign comes down, and 2x. Then we are going to move the 2, and just the 2, not the 2x. You divide by 2, you get negative 3 and x. But again, notice we have a problem. The x is on the right, it's supposed to be on the left. So this is where we will flip sides. And again, put a star by that, because anytime you flip sides, when x comes over here and negative 3 goes over there, the symbol must flip also. And that is the answer that you're looking for. Okay? And then the last example before we get to our work. Again, solving is not the issue. First, we're going to move the 8. This is a positive 8, so we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. Again, I hope you don't think that you add just because of that negative. That negative belongs to that 3. So this comes down, negative 3x here. Symbol doesn't move, negative 6. But now again, notice we have a negative number attached to a variable. This is where I'm going to flip signs. I forgot to put my step on the other one, but it's okay. That becomes positive. This changes. That turns to 6. Again, put the star by that. Then we're going to move the 3. That's what I forgot to put on my last step. And so x comes down with 2. And again, that is the answer that you are looking for. Go back to letter D real fast, because I forgot to do this. After we flip signs, we need to move the 3 on that one also. That's where we divided by 3. I got so caught up in the fact that we flip signs. But again, flipping signs, flipping sides, that's what you're looking for. I want you to notice that all the steps in here were not major. Moving values using algebra did not cause any issues at all. That means 0 issues. That is the first class I talked about. Again, moving values, not a problem. This will be true with every inequality that you solve. The only times we had to be careful is when we flip sides or when we flip signs. So again, anytime you flip something, you had to be careful. As long as you work with this in mind, you will get better at this week's information. Please bring your sheet up to me for credit, then go to Math Excel and complete the quiz titled Chapter 3 Day 1 Quiz. There is 2 Chapter 3 Day 1s. Chapter 3 Day 1 Quiz is the first thing you have to do. It is a quiz grade, and it must be completed before you can work on the homework. Now in my 135 class, this is not really a quiz. It's just labeled quiz because this is actually what you have to do before you can do the second one. Both of these are 2 separate homework assignments. But again, in order to move to the second part, you have to get a 100%. Again, you can work together, but whatever grade you receive would be the grade that sticks for the quarter. I'm talking that to my 134B class. After completing the quiz, work on Chapter 3 Day 1 homework to get as much homework assignment done as you can. Other than that, like I said, just make sure you practice, make sure you speak up if there are any issues, and good luck.